What's up, my mandolin friends? If you clicked on this video, you know the story, right? The right hand is one of the most difficult parts about playing this little instrument, and I think it's because there's so many details tied into this one extremity, right? Your tone, your volume, your timing, that's all tied to this right hand. And even more so, the feel of how the music is coming across. And I think that feel aspect is probably one of the most important parts of our sound as mandolin players. It's the difference between playing a tune really straight and robotic like this, as to having a more natural swung eighth note feel like this. It's a pretty big difference, right? I think it makes the music sound a lot more authentic and a lot more natural, but I see a lot of beginner and even intermediate players still playing really straight and even. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to do this, and we're gonna take an even deeper dive into some right hand exercises and ideas that will put your right hand through the paces to get you out of any rut that you might be experiencing in this feel department. But before we get started, I just wanted to say a huge shout out to the Bluegrass Unlimited magazine for asking me to do this video. Be sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel and check out all the awesome lessons that they have on their page. And by the way, if we've never met, my name's David, and I play mandolin in a bluegrass band up in Boston called Mile 12, and I also run my own YouTube channel where we do a bunch of mandolin lessons like this, so if you like this, be sure to check it out. All right, so first up, as the great jazz cats like to put it, it don't mean a thing unless it's got that swing, right? And this is an aspect that doesn't get talked a whole lot about in bluegrass mandolin as far as my experience goes, and a lot of people get confused about that term, swinging the eighth notes. So if you're new to this concept, let's just talk a little bit about it before we try it out. So in 4/4 time, which is the most popular time signature in all of bluegrass, there should be 8 eighth notes in our measure. And we'll probably play these with alternating pick strokes, down, up, down, up. And the way that most people understand it is that each one of those eighth notes should have equal amounts of time, just 1/8 of the measure. And if we were to play those 8 eighth notes, say on our open G string, really straight and even like it's written out, it should sound something like this. But in most RL music traditions like bluegrass and old time, we have this swing feel. And what this means is we're adding a little extra time to the first eighth note out of every pair. So instead of having all these eighth notes be even, we're adding a little extra time to the eighth notes that fall on the numbered beats in the measure. I know this sounds really complicated and tricky, but it's actually not too bad when you start hearing it and feeling it. So if we play these same 8 eighth notes on our open G string with this swing feel thrown in, it should sound something like this. Not too bad, right? And since we're alternating with the rhythm of the music, our downstrokes are always gonna fall on those numbered beats in the measure, and they're also gonna be a bit longer than our upstrokes. So try to burn that association into your mind. Down is long, up is short. But another way to practice this is to take your favorite fiddle tune and see if you can play through the tune straight first, and then try the opposite where you swing the heck out of it. So one of my favorite fiddle tunes is an old time tune called Squirrel Hunters, and I've been teaching this one over on my YouTube channel and on this Patreon page that I run, so check it out if you're interested. So I'll play through the A section of this tune again with the straight eighth note feel so you can see what that sounds like. So that's one extreme of the swing spectrum, right? But let's see if we can come all the way to the opposite end and swing this so hard, like a honky-tonk pianist might play this tune, something like this. Well, those are both crazy, right? You probably wouldn't want to play either way when you get to the jam or you're playing on stage. Ideally, you want to find somewhere in the middle between those two extremes to call home and to hang out for a while. But I think it is really helpful to experience both ends of the spectrum here. That way you can better decide where your personal preference is somewhere here in the middle, because there's a lot of working room. And if you listen to a lot of different mandolin players out there, you'll know that they all have different eighth note feels, right? Sam Bush comes to mind as someone who has a little bit more of a swingy sound in his eighth note feel. And then Sierra Hull probably is more on the even straight eighth note side of things, even though she still has a swing in there. But they both sound incredible, and that eighth note swing is a huge part of why they sound the way they do. So now let's try playing through this tune again, somewhere in the middle of the spectrum where we're not swinging too much, but we're not playing it straight. Might sound something like this. Well, now we're swinging, right? And this is probably the biggest proponent that's gonna make your music sound a lot more natural and a lot more authentic. But let's not stop there. There are definitely a lot of other right-hand pitfalls that we wanna avoid. The big danger of this eighth note swing technique is that we're prioritizing our downstrokes over our upstrokes, right? The downstrokes are gonna get a little bit extra time than the upstrokes, and we're playing our downstrokes on those numbered beats in the measure, the really important rhythmic parts of the music. On top of that, we have gravity on our side with our downstrokes, so those downs are always gonna be a little bit stronger, a little bit louder. So another big issue I find in a lot of mandolin players' right hands is that they'll over accent the downstrokes, and we won't even really be able to hear the upstrokes. It might sound something like this. So just swinging the eighth notes alone won't solve all of our problems, as you just heard there, right? Even though I was swinging, it didn't really feel natural and there wasn't any flow or consistency to the sound of the music. So here are a couple of exercises that can help us get out of this tendency. And this first exercise is gonna sound a little bit contradictory because I'm gonna tell you to do exactly what I just told you not to do. We're gonna practice this by overemphasizing all the downstrokes in the music, just like I did earlier. And the reason why we're doing this is because if you're doing something unintentional, like overemphasizing the downstrokes, if you can do it intentionally, it's gonna be a lot easier to change it later on. At least that's what I think. So try it out for your favorite tune. See if you can overemphasize every downstroke in the music like this. Nice. Well, next, let's slowly see if we can wean off these really strong downstrokes. First up, let's see if we can only accent the first and the third beat of the measure, or the first downstroke and the third downstroke in the measure. It sounds something like this. It's already starting to sound more natural, right? But let's see if we can take away that strong accent on the third beat as well and only accent the first beat out of every measure. Sounds like this. Awesome. Well, you've already got a lot more control over your right hand. Well, let's start to do some weird things here. What if we emphasize not the first or the third beat, but the second and the fourth beat? It might feel a little bit strange at first, but it's actually the same emphasis that we have whenever we do the bluegrass chop. Let me show you what this sounds like too. Pretty cool, right? It's almost like a fiddle bow shuffle where you're really accenting that backbeat through the melody. So once you get used to all these different accents, you can start to mix and match them throughout the course of a tune, and it starts to feel like the rhythm is almost on par with the melody, where you have all these little nuances and possibilities to change things up and to make the tune your own. But let me leave you with a couple of really difficult right-hand brain teasers for you. So far we've only really been talking about the downstrokes, but again, there's that temptation to overemphasize the downs and to make the ups sound quieter or not as important, and we really want to have this consistency between the two. So to really beef up our upstrokes here, let's see if we can over accent all the upstrokes in the music. It's kind of weird, but it sounds something like this. It takes a little bit to get used to, right? And obviously we're not gonna play it like this in a real musical setting, but overemphasizing those upstrokes and being able to do that intentionally is gonna help even things out overall. And for any of you right-hand nerds out there, the last exercise is the hardest of all, and this is where we intentionally reverse our upstrokes and downstrokes to place our upstrokes on the beat and our downstrokes in between the beat. This one's really hard. Take your time doing this, but here's what this sounds like over Squirrel Hunters. I'm still working on that one myself. It's really hard to make these reverse pick strokes feel natural and to have that eighth note swing that I was talking about earlier. But again, I think exercises like this are useful, not necessarily because they'll be practical in the jam or we'll ever intentionally want to play this way, but by forcing our right hand to do these weird things, we're gonna have more flexibility and more facility with our right hand overall, and a lot more control over our emphasis in anything that we want to play. And I think that emphasis or the accents in the beat are really the key to get the right musical feel for what we're playing. Well, there you go. I hope these right hand exercises and ideas were helpful for you. They're concepts that I come back to again and again just to keep fleshing out my right hand. And you can find that Squirrel Hunters video lesson over on my YouTube channel, as well as the tablature, the standard notation, melody recordings, and backing tracks for that tune, and all of my lesson videos over on my Patreon page. If you're new to Patreon, it's just this monthly subscription-based platform where I share lessons and I share transcriptions and recordings from all the lessons that I have over on YouTube. So I'd be honored if you check it out. But again, just a huge thanks to the Bluegrass Unlimited team and to Dan Miller specifically for asking me to do this. It's a huge honor. Be sure to check out the Bluegrass Unlimited YouTube channel, like I mentioned, and check out their website for the magazine, for online articles, and a bunch of other cool content. Well, that's it for now, but I'm sure I'll see you mandolin friends somewhere else on the internet sometime soon. So until then, happy picking.